Okay, welcome everybody. If you could go ahead and mute yourself out, that would be fantastic. Welcome to our Zoom chat tonight where we're talking about the DNA of TNT. I just love you all so much and I'm so glad you're here. So I was reading a leadership book with a couple of my leaders here, and it asked, oh, I'm getting weird feedback. Be sure to mute yourself out.
How do I do that?
I can help if you don't know how. Hopefully that'll do it.
You can mute everyone, can't you?
Probably. Okay. All right, that sounds better. All right, so I was reading a leadership book with a couple of my leaders here, and in one of the chapters at the end, we've got some exercises that ask the question, do you know the DNA of your team? And I thought, yeah, I do know the DNA of my team. And then it said, as a follow-up, does your team know the DNA? And I thought, not so sure that one's true. So I asked my leaders if they thought everybody knew, like, what is the DNA of our team? What is my heartbeat? And they said, no, I don't think everybody knows that. And not only do they not know it, but you need to tell them. So I thought, okay, so that's why we're here tonight. And I want to make myself really vulnerable, which is kind of scary, and share my heart with you just around who we are as a team and where I really think that God is taking us and why. So I don't know everybody's faith here, but I am a Christ follower and a lover of God's word. So a lot of what I'll be sharing tonight is going to come out of that just because that's who I am. And if that doesn't, if you're not, that's okay. It doesn't matter because we're just going to be talking about leadership principles and stuff. And it really applies no matter what your faith is. So no worries about that. So I'm going to give you some background, which is going to lead up to what I really, really want to share. But because some of you know my background, but I think there's probably quite a few of you that don't. But 13 years ago, when I first started taking Juice Plus, I was literally crying out to God for an answer. I didn't like feeling achy and tired and heavy all the time. And I knew that that was not God's intention for me. So I cried out, and he answered in the form of my aunt, who called me and told me about Juice Plus. And so now, fast forward, here I am 13 years later, and there's a team of us, over 50 people, and over 350 orders going out every month, or you know what I mean, being shipped out, which is just crazy, you guys. So I accidentally became a rep just because my mom decided she wanted to take Juice Plus and told my aunt, and my aunt called me and said it would make the most sense for me to be a rep and have my mom as my first customer and that I get a discount on my product. And so that whole discount thing seemed like a no-brainer to me. So I went for it. I have notes, you guys. And I had no idea that any of this was going to happen. So this was all pretty confusing to me. I didn't see myself, you're going to hear yourselves in this, I'm sure. I didn't see myself as a salesperson. I didn't see myself as a businesswoman or any of that, right? I was a homeschool mom and a Bible study leader, and that was my calling in life at the time. So to really back things up and give you some background, I think that really a lot of you wouldn't know about me. I started teaching my first Bible study when I was about 16 years old. I was in high school, and I just thought we should have a Bible study. So I started it along with one of my really good friends, Denise, and we took turns doing the content, leading Bible study. And then every week I led the music. I had a guitar and I played guitar and we sang. And it was this simple little Bible study. And I continued leading Bible studies throughout the decades after that. When Mindy was in high school, we started a mother-daughter Bible study in a whole ministry at our church. And, because we wanted to study God's word together. And at one point, the high school portion of that ministry grew to 60 people, and they put a microphone in my hand, and I was horrified that they wanted me to talk into a microphone. Because at the beginning of this, I started out, no lie, like church mouse shy. Mindy? Yes? I know you don't believe it. I have a big mouth now.
She was so shy and so worried about what people thought.
Yes, I really, really was. So eventually that ministry grew to include mothers and daughters of all ages in the church. We go to a big church, and it developed into this really big thing. So when I look back, I wouldn't have said so then, but I realize now that I was always a woman of great vision and great passion. And if what I wanted or needed wasn't there, I just created it. And I didn't think I was anything special because I was always afraid. And I was always afraid of what people thought of me. But I did it anyway. So at the point when God called me into Juice Plus, I had been leading Bible studies for over 30 years. It was my passion, and everybody knew that about me. So imagine my confusion when God called me out of that and into Juice Plus. And I struggled with God over this for many, many, many years. Mindy could tell you a whole lot about that. I just couldn't understand what he was doing. So I have prayed, and he has answered many times in many ways. And the answer has always been the same. This is what I want you to do. Will you obey me? I doubted so many times. And when I would cry out many times, what would happen is that my pastor would end up preaching a sermon that answered my cry without knowing. We go to a big church. My pastor didn't know what was going on with me. But it seemed to always, it just happened that way, and it would be the right message for me. And it just blew me away how this happened time and time again. And basically it was, I know this is confusing. I know this is different, but this is what I want you to do. So I kept doing it. And when it got hard to, do what I do with Juice Plus, and it does get hard, you guys, I would doubt and I would cry out again, and he answered over and over and over again. So some of you may know, and many of you probably do not know, that the first conference I attended, I was up all night long the first night begging God to let me go home. Please don't make me be here. Please don't make me do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a Juice Plus rep. So I got, oh gosh, what do I want to say about that? I just didn't want to be a part of this business. And so I think when you see the version of me 13 years later, you probably don't realize how much I did not want to do this. I just really didn't. So I got to the conference center the next day, and I was obviously exhausted. So during one of the sessions, I went out into the foyer or whatever, and I was going to go get some caffeine because I was tired. I was up all night long. So I went out and I ran into, many of you have met Christine Abril, our national marketing director. I had just met her. She was virtually a stranger to me. So I ran into Christine, and she was standing there talking to a woman. She introduced me to this woman who was a complete stranger to me. Remember church mouth shy me, who just wanted to go home. So she introduces me to this woman, and she walks away and leaves me with a total stranger. And I was pretty sure I was going to die right then. I didn't, in case you're wondering. So I've been up all night long struggling with God. This woman looks at me. I think she asked me one question, and I couldn't tell you what it was, but it didn't have anything to do with what we talked about. She looked into my eyes, and she said, Melanie, and she continued to name the thing I had been up all night talking to God about. And she told me how that's what she struggled with, and that how God helped her to work through that. Well, okay, because not even my husband knew what I was struggling with. But I was struggling with stuff around it being was it materialistic? And how could this be right to not teach Bible study anymore? Like, how could any of this be right and of God? But she addressed it all. No one knew, only God knew, but he told her. And she spoke to it. And I could not get back to my chair fast enough to try to write down what she said to me because I never wanted to forget what she said. And I don't know where those notes are now, but it was like it stamped on my heart that God wanted me to do this. So how crazy is that? I mean, I was utterly dumbfounded. So eventually it changed, and I didn't so much doubt that this is where God wanted me exactly, but I had other doubts around it. I just, I didn't come into this business a confident person at all. So I doubted, maybe it wasn't for me because it's not happening fast enough. So maybe that means, I'm not really the person for this job to lead all these people because I have it so much on my heart that I need to show you guys how to win. And if I don't win, how do you know how to win? So maybe I'm not the person for the job. So I kept doubting because maybe it's not fast enough. But the doubt wasn't so big. Now I didn't doubt that I was supposed to be in it at all. It was just, it like shifted into a different kind of doubt, if that makes any kind of sense. And so fast forward to 2 years ago, almost exactly, January of 2017, when I was sitting in church, minding my own business, listening to the sermon, don't even remember what the pastor was talking about, but suddenly I flipped and I was in the book of Nehemiah in the Old Testament. And if you don't know much about the Bible, that's okay. Some of you, if you do, it's just a classic book in the Old Testament on leadership and how to work as a team. And I've read it many times, but I hadn't read it for a while or studied it for a while. So the purpose of this call really is to tell you about the conversation that God and I had that day when I stumbled into the book of Nehemiah in the middle of my pastor's sermon. And then we ended up in the car. We just happened to be driving to Bradley University that day to take a look at Bradley for MJ, my son. And so I snuggled up in the backseat of the car, and on the way to Bradley, I read the entire book of Nehemiah and was just mind blown. So it basically changed the trajectory of my future. And the leaders on my team have been urging me to make myself vulnerable and tell you what happened that day. So I give you just a little bit of background about Nehemiah. I'm certainly no Bible scholar, but the book of Nehemiah opens in this Persian city of Susa in the year 444 BC. And Nehemiah would eventually travel to Israel to rebuild the wall that had been broken down there. So Israel had been taken into captivity, and now they were beginning to head back. And so Nehemiah recorded his journey about reconstructing this wall. So basically, the book begins with Nehemiah's friend coming to him to tell him that the walls of Jerusalem had been broken down and were in disrepair. And you're thinking, what in the world does this have to do with us, right? Hold on, it's coming. So people in ancient cities couldn't live without a wall around their city because it left them too vulnerable to attack. So they weren't safe. And when they didn't have a wall, and it was just a matter of great sadness and great shame. So that was a really big deal. I mean, that doesn't translate to us as much, but there needed to be a wall. So Nehemiah hears this about the people in Jerusalem, and he starts to grieve deeply because he hears that, his besties, his great buddies, his people, are crying out to God in despair because this wall has been broken down. So he went to the king and asked if he could go and rebuild the wall. Short version of the story, the king says yes. So as I'm reading this, you guys, God starts to talk to me. Not audibly, of course. I'm not actually crazy, but a little bit crazy. But I don't even know, and I don't know if you've had this experience, but in the quiet recesses of my heart, God's talking to me as I'm reading this story. And what I heard was that God's people were crying out to him just like I was when I cried out to him, right? That's what my story starts out with. It starts out with me crying out to God. And so his people in this country are in great distress because they're so sick. Families and finances are being devastated every day because of the standard American diet. Think about it. The walls of our country are slowly but surely being broken down by this insidious enemy called the standard American diet. And you all know it to be true. So I'm going to give you a couple of statistics. On May 6, 2018, Kimberly Amadeo at thebalance.com reported that medical bills were the biggest cause of U.S. bankruptcies, according to a CNBC report. It estimated that 2 million people were adversely affected. And there's a popular Facebook meme out there that probably a lot of you have seen that says that 643,000 Americans go bankrupt every year due to what? Medical costs. President Obama in his 2009 State of the Union address said that a medical bankruptcy occurs every 30 seconds in our country. Can you just let that land? That's 1 million bankruptcies a year. No wonder God's people are crying out to him. Oh my gosh. So in the quiet recesses of my heart, in January of 2017, as I'm reading this and knowing all this to be true, I heard the Lord ask me, will you help my people? Will you rebuild the wall? And I said, yes, Lord, I will. I'll do that. So just, I don't know if you guys get how profound this is and what's happening to our country. So this division of Medicare, the CMS, projected that total healthcare spending in the U.S. grew by an average of 4.6 in 2017, reaching $3.5 trillion. And they estimated that U.S. healthcare spending would reach about $5.7 trillion by 2026. They also predicted that spending for private health insurance will grow by 4.7% on average every year from 2021 to 2026. What? Where does this stop? God's people are already crying out to him and it's only getting worse. So Mike and I pay almost $1,100 for our insurance every single month. And if you multiply that out by those percentages in 5 years, it'll be $1,400 a month. That's a mortgage, you guys. So mortgage plus health insurance plus health costs equals God's people are crying out to him. And we have the answer. So I said, yes, Lord, began doubling and tripling my efforts to tell people. I've lost my dad to diabetes and the health costs that go with that. I've lost my mom to Alzheimer's and the health costs that go with that. I've lost my best friend to ovarian cancer and watched the devastation that happened to her family because of losing their beloved wife and mother and the devastation to their finances. And I wanted to stop, you guys. I want everybody to have the chance to hear about Juice Plus so that they don't have to go through what I've seen people go through. But the thing is, I can't do it by myself. I don't know the whole world. And you know people that I don't know, so I need your help. And, oh gosh, I know we're going to be running over a little bit, but I want Mindy to talk a little bit about the next couple of chapters of Nehemiah and how did they do that?
Yeah. So she started sharing this with me, and I started reading through the book of Nehemiah because I didn't really know anything about it. I knew there was a guy and a wall, and that was about all I had. So I was like, I should probably go read this. This seems important. So I did, and I was blown away because, like she shared, it very much relates to what we're doing. And these people were in trouble without the wall to protect them. And our world is in trouble without better nutrition. They're sick and they're broke, and it's sad and it's devastating families. And so Nehemiah moves back to Israel and to Jerusalem, and he starts recruiting his friends and everybody he can find to help him because he can't rebuild the wall. There's no way. There's hundreds of miles of wall. That's crazy. And so he recruits some people. And what I was really struck by was a couple of things. One is all the different kinds of people, because it's kind of a boring chapter if you skim through it. But what I realized is There's every kind of person helping rebuild this wall. It wasn't all people that were good at building walls. It was goldsmiths and perfumers, and the rulers of districts jumped in and helped. Their sons and their daughters, guys, the girls helped too. Their daughters helped rebuild the wall, and temple servants and priests and merchants, and it just goes on, all the different kinds of people. So it doesn't matter if you're a healthcare person or a science person or a whatever, they needed everybody. Everybody helped. And the other thing I was really struck by was what everybody contributed. So some people rebuilt these huge stretches of wall from point A to point B, and it was this impressive thing. And then other people, they repaired the wall opposite their own house. That was it. They just did it a little bit right here. I'll just fix my little piece. And so there's just a lot of correlation for us. Some people are going to come in and they're going to tell thousands of people about Juice Plus, and they're going to be NMDs, and they're going to make a crap ton of money. And that's amazing. And some people, they're going to tell their family and their best friend about it, and they're going to rebuild the wall right across from their house. And that's really important too, because if all those people don't do it, there's still big holes in the wall. So all those people are important. So that's, really struck me. And then what really struck me is in the next chapter, then their enemies start getting wind of it and start mocking them and intimidating them and all this stuff. And it starts to get hard. Because, at first it's exciting. Like, I'm going to go tell the whole world about Juice Plus. This is going to be great. I'm going to be a millionaire. And then it gets hard. And we're like, yeah, never mind. I don't think this is for me. But what Nehemiah said to them was, do not be afraid. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome. And this is what I love. Fight for your brothers, for your sons, for your daughters, for your wives, and for your homes. And that's what we're doing. We're fighting for our brothers, our sons, our daughters, our wives, and our homes. Because I think the statistic is an extra $500 a month would save most people from bankruptcy. It's really not very hard to make $500 a month doing this. And so how many homes can we literally save by doing this? It's just incredible. So that's what I was really struck by as I read through and got excited about this vision. And I think Cammie had a couple of things to share also.
I do. I like Mindy had heard about Nehemiah, but hadn't really dug into it a whole lot. And so when Melanie came to us with this, I was like, okay, let me go read this. And I read it, and it didn't really sink in the first time. So I went back today and actually dug into it a little deeper, and mind blown, because the parallels between the wall and who we are as Juice Plus reps were huge. We're filling gaps. We're filling gaps with nutrition. We're filling gaps with finances. And so what we talked about was $500 a month could save you from bankruptcy. That's a qualified business. Mm-hmm. And a qualified business, if you don't know, is 1,000 points going through your business every single month, which is equivalent to either 10 quads, which is the trio and the omega, or even just 8 shred customers. And that's with the shred 10 package. And so when I broke it down into those numbers, I was like, everybody knows 8 people. Like it makes it a lot simpler than the whole world right at the start. I mean, even now, I've been in the business almost 7 years. I still don't know the whole world. And so we do need each other. We need each other to each strengthen the wall. We need each other to fill holes in the wall, and do it together. We lock arms together to do it. So if you want more information on qualified business, let me know. I've got a ton of numbers, but $500 a month is huge for people to stay either ahead or to put some savings in the bank.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, you guys. So just think about that. We are fighting for homes, and we are keeping families intact. And I'm so grateful for every one of you for what you have done and what you are doing, and the people that you're telling about Juice Plus that I don't even know. There's so many people in my report I don't even know, and I probably will never meet them. But I bet you we're going to meet them in heaven and they're going to say thank you. Because what I know to be true is that the people you get on Juice Plus will never know the diseases they did not get because you got Juice Plus in their body. So I just want to thank you for doing that. I want to ask you guys just to think about it and let us know if you want to help us rebuild the wall and keep homes intact and fill in those gaps. And that's just that's the heartbeat of what we're doing. So often we just talk about it from technical terms and the numbers and your next promotion. And my leaders really just felt I should dig in with you and tell you like what's underneath that in my heart. So I hope that's helpful and encouraging to you guys. And I hope it's also helpful and encouraging to you that we're going to have a raffle drawing. Whoa! So I want to wrap up with that. Should I stop recording before the raffle drawing?
Probably.
Okay.